What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Closers Klub. Today I have the luxury of speaking with Andrew Litchfield from Penny Investments, and we're in one of his recent projects here in the city of Boston in the neighborhood of Dorchester. Andrew, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Rob. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us, man. So typically I like to start off just by getting a sense of as to who you are, where you're from. If you could share a little bit of your origin story, so folks out there can understand where you're starting from, and we can get into later on where you are today.
Sure, I'd love to. Well, my name's Andrew Litchfield. I'm 34 years old. Got started in real estate around 14, 15 years ago. So it's been a while. I've been full-time in real estate for about 7 years, but we all have our journeys when it comes to real estate. So it took me a little bit while to get to where I'm at today. I grew up in the South Shore of Massachusetts in a town called Norfolk. Went to a college in the Cape called Mass Maritime Academy. I was always good at math, always good at numbers, and I went to school for engineering, actually. From there, I realized, hey, I want to do a little bit more than engineering, and I found real estate. It's been a huge passion of mine since I was 19 years old. So.
Excellent, man. How did you get into real estate? So initially, kind of explain to us what that journey looked like. Did you do something before you jumped in as a full-time investor?
Yeah, it's a great question. So at 19, my second year in school, I did a couple internships at some power plants, working in the degree that I went for, and I was like, this is not what I want to do. My friend told me about a seminar. It was a Rich Dad Poor Dad seminar, which I'm sure a lot of your viewers know about Robert Kiyosaki. But I went to that free seminar one night and I got hooked. The tagline that they told me was, make money while you sleep. And they were referring to owner rental properties where, if I went to sleep and I woke up on the next month, I'd be having a rent check in my mailbox. And that really got me started on my journey at 19. Obviously, it's been a lot of ups and downs since then, about 14, 15 years. But that's how I got started. And, first thing I did was just start networking with a lot of people.
Love it. Love it. So what was your first deal? Was your first deal actually a rental?
Great question. My first deal was, I'm sure your viewers know about this too, it was a BRRRR. So I bought this property. I actually linked up with a really good guy at a real estate networking event. He became my mentor. I went up to him afterwards. I wasn't shy about it. And I said, hey, I'm looking to learn real estate. Do you have any internships or possibilities for me to work with you? And so I was working for him with about 6 months, and he would show me the ropes of going into properties, what to look for, how to analyze. And I ended up finding a property, a 2-family, in a town called Webster, Mass. So just south of Worcester. I found this property on the HUD website. So it was a foreclosure. Not many of these HUD properties around anymore, but back in 2010, 2011, there was tons of opportunities for foreclosures. So I purchased this property for $44,000. And you're never going to hear that number again.
Good deal, man. Great deal.
It's a good deal no matter where it was.
Yep.
I purchased this property for $44,000. I spent about $25,000 to fix up each side. And I lived on one side while I rented the other side out. And about 6 to 8 months, I was able to go back to the bank, refinance for a $100,000 loan, pay myself back, and then I owned a rental property where I was living, and I was actually making like $500 a month.
Love it.
So that really got me really hooked at that point.
Yeah, and that's really the model. I did a very similar story. I bought my first house when I was 23 in Taunton.
Great.
And initially, I bought kind of during the peak. I bought in 2003, and I paid like $360 for a 2-family at that time. But I was cash flowing about $400 a month. My first one.
Hey.
So I was like, that was life changing for a 23-year-old who was working a 9-to-5 job and kind of doing real estate as a side hustle. So I could definitely relate to it. But same experience, it was life changing.
Yes.
Kind of seeing the power of being able to kind of put your energy and effort into something that now is producing additional income. And now you're just looking at, all right, how do I scale that up? How do I multiply that?
Absolutely. And I always love the fact that I can, real estate is something tangible. I can touch, I can feel, I spent $25,000, but I put a lot of sweat equity into that property. I was there painting, I was there sleeping on the air mattress at night, wake up in the morning, working on tile, and I did a lot of work myself. But it gave me a great foundation. So now that I work with contractors that are doing work, I know what to expect. I know what to look for. I know how long things are going to take. So it was definitely a beneficial experience for me in the beginning.
I love it, Andrew. And so many investors I speak to, like yourself, like myself, initially we had to take on a huge chunk of the work.
Yes.
Even my first house, I had Section 8 tenants. And when those inspections came, there were little, punch list items that had to get done.
Lines,
right. I had to, put a handrail up, changing hot water heaters.
Absolutely.
You're looking at the guy. I was the jack of all trades on that first house. But like you said, it gives you the foundation to now start to understand how a house functions, and now you're not intimidated anymore. Because I think a lot of people are intimidated by actually dealing with repairs just because they don't know.
100%. I mean, I can remember, and I always tell this story all the time, my electrician, who I still use to this day for about 13, 14 years. Early on, I said, I have this 2-family. I don't have a lot of money, but we found knob and tube. So he said, hey, come be my helper for a couple of days. You pay me this per hour. And literally, I was fishing wires, snaking wires through. So I knew where the wires were going, how everything was going to work. And again, learning all that, now I know going into a property how everything functions.
Absolutely, man. It shows, man. And a lot of guys, I can kind of tell when I deal with investors if you've actually done the work before, or if it's someone who's kind of just conceptually looking at things but doesn't really know what's going on behind the scenes. But I can definitely vouch and say firsthand, when I speak with you and I dealt with you over the years, I'm like, oh no, this guy knows exactly what he's doing.
No, and it's really big. And even just working with contractors, being able to talk to them and not talking down to them, understanding what they're going through as well when they're looking at a house is super important.
Excellent. I want to backtrack a little bit.
Sure.
Because I think this is super important for everyone out there to hear this. I'm big on mentorship, and I know you are as well.
Same here.
And because it's changed my life. And can you speak a little bit to how you found your mentor and the impact he's had on your real estate career?
That's a great question. So I told you I went to a real estate networking event when I was 19 or 20 years old. He was one of the panelists up there. I said, wow, this guy really knows his stuff. Afterwards, I went up to him and I said, hey, introduce myself. And, I think that's one of the biggest things, a big takeaway is just putting yourself out there, right? And going up there and talking to people, because I think you can attest to this. Most of the people that are in real estate and most successful people in real estate are super happy to share their knowledge. And so right away he said, yeah, you can come work for me. So he was actually in the Worcester market at the time. And so I started working for him, and it's been life-changing because I still talk to him to this day. I mean, I've seen the progression that he has gone through, going from single families, and now he's doing 50-unit mill conversions. I actually was able to bring my students, my mentor students, over to one of his projects to learn more about that. So we have a lifelong relationship with my mentors, and that's a huge part of real estate in my life.
I love it. I love it. And you touched on, you have a mentorship program. So definitely, folks, if you're thinking about getting a real estate mentor, Andrew's a great resource on that front as well. Like you said, we all want to share our knowledge, and I believe that's how we pay it forward. But at the end of the day, it's also the greatest gift that we can give to others, our families, and the folks who need to hear what we have to share. Is sharing that knowledge to help others change their lives.
Absolutely. I agree. And, there's no real formal education for real estate, right? You can get your real estate license. You can take a couple of classes at colleges, but it really is about finding a mentor, and learning from them, people that are already doing what you want to do, and really seeing firsthand how things work. So it really is hands-on experience, and mentorship is a huge part when you want to or you are in real estate.
Love it. Excellent, Andrew. So next set of questions I have for you are really about the deal itself. So My first question is, how did you find this deal?
That's a good question. So a lot of my deals come from brokers that have a lot of deals off market. So it's actually from someone at your firm that brought me this deal, and I've done close to probably 30 deals with this person. So, once you find that one or two different people that are bringing you what you are looking for, stick with them. Make sure you take care of them always. So I found this from a broker in your office.
Excellent. You mind if I say his name?
Of course.
He was supposed to be here today.
I would love him to be here.
And he had an appointment he couldn't miss when we had to change things up. But he was like, Rob, you do enough videos for all of us. I'm like, Hakeem, no, the reality is your story needs to get out here.
It does.
I want people to see what you're doing, the work you're doing to really help guys like you
I agree.
and other investors out here grow their business. So his name's Hakeem Sadler. He's kind of a guy who likes to hide behind the cloud.
Very low key.
Right, exactly. Of basically nothingness, right? He's like, who is this guy, right? He's a real player in the marketplace, and I'm blessed to have him on my team. And I'm sure you feel the same way.
I can count for at least 6, 7, 8 deals a year,
right,
just from Hakeem.
Yeah,
he brings me a lot of stuff. And, some of them aren't great, but you have to sift through a lot of deals. I think, that's one of the things I talk to my students about is you can't just be buying that first one that comes to you. You've got to go through a lot. You got to be able to analyze a lot of different deals to know, okay, this one is the right one.
Yeah, no, that's a great piece. And I want to add to that because I think too many investors, especially when they first start out, they're just looking to do a deal. But at the end of the day, you've got to have a clear-cut model. And that's really what's going to lead to your success.
One of the things that I talk to them about too is, listen, you're not building your portfolio, right? We're here to make money, right? Yep. And my motto is we only do good deals. Rob, I'm sure you can attest to this. We've been in some bad deals before. We've had sleepless nights where we know we're not making money on a project, but we still have 4 more months of finishing this project up. Yep. I never want anyone else to have that feeling. So that's why I do this mentorship, to show them, hey, you shouldn't be jumping into something like this. Make sure that your first deal is a great deal, because then you can build off of that.
Absolutely, and I totally agree. And I give my students and my friends and folks I speak to the same advice, Andrew. Very similar, because we've been doing it long enough.
Only
to know.
Do good deals. I get them telling me that now.
Right?
Hey, should I do this? I said we only do good deals.
Right. So. I love it. Excellent, man. So speak to the financing side, because a lot of folks who are just starting out are curious. They may not have the money in the bank to do a deal like this. They may not have the banking relationships. And there's obviously a broad array of vehicles that folks can use to finance deals. So how did you finance this particular deal? So
just to kind of backtrack a little bit, when you first start out, it's very tough to get your bank conventional financing, a commercial bank. So you use hard money. And hard money is just a little bit more expensive, but you have to look at the economics of the deal. If you can pay a 12%, 13% interest to a lender and still make money, then you can make something work. On this deal, since I have been doing this for as long as I have, and I have the experience, I was able to go to a conventional bank. So I went to a conventional bank. They require 25% down, and they will fund 100% of the construction money. Their rate is, 3, 4, 5% lower than a hard money lender. So there is a lot of benefits of going with a bank. The downside is that you do have to bring 25% down to the table. And we'll talk a little bit about how I raise that 25% down. It's not all my money. If I'm doing 10 different projects, I can't be putting 25% down on all my projects. Right. So I bring in private investors. And this starts with family and friends. Start with family and friends, providing them with an interest rate return on their money, and then it expands from there. So to answer your question, I worked with a bank. The 25% down came from some of my money and some of my investors' money. And those are private guys, that have good jobs. They like real estate, but not full-time into real estate. Great point, man. And what do you typically pay, Andrew, to your investors who invest in your deals? So my investors are typically between 12 and 15% annualized. Okay. So if a project takes a year, they're going to get that 12 to 15%. If it takes 6 months, it's going to be prorated to that amount. Nice, half that. So, it also changes per deal. You know, if a deal is more risky, let's say that I'm going through zoning, and then, that's a whole other topic we can talk about. But let's say I'm going through zoning. Well, maybe I provide them a higher return, or I provide them maybe a small percentage of profit share at the end to make it worth it for them. But most of my investors are between 12 and 15%. Excellent. And are they primarily friends and family, or through time have you got referrals? And I only ask this question because some folks are going to start with friends and family. Of course. And other folks may not have that access. And I know some folks have met a lot of other investors that they've teamed up with at like RIAs and different real estate networking groups. So absolutely. So it started out for me with family and friends. My father was one of my first investors. Nice. And he kind of did it as a favor in the beginning. I think now he realizes, wow, I'm actually getting a great return on my money, asking me when the next project is. Love it. So, I think everyone is always going to be skeptical in the beginning when you're starting your real estate journey. It's just about getting out to as many people as possible. So it started with family and friends, and then it's just really expanded from there. I mean, with 10 years of reaching out to different investors, I have a lot of people, whether they're old coworkers, and then they tell their friends about it. So as you do good work and as you return your investors' money, they're going to talk to more people about it. And that's how it expands from there. Another great point you mentioned was going to real estate networking events.
Right.
Going to those, there's a lot of people that want to get into real estate game, don't know how, maybe don't know how to find a deal, but they have some money they want to invest. So you can work to get investors that way as well.
Yeah, no, I know some guys who tried the friends and family route, didn't work, and so they had to go the other route. As you know, I'm a hard money lender, so
Yes.
I get to see some really cool scenarios. And I had one kid, 22-year-old kid, did his first flip, and that's exactly how he raised it. He tried the friends and family route, didn't really come from a family of means, went to a RIA, met a couple of investors, and was able to raise his down payment and do his first deal. So there's different ways to do it, guys. I appreciate you sharing, and I definitely give him some real insight from when you started to kind of how it's evolved. And
Yeah, I mean, I started out with a friend, hey, can I borrow $5,000 from you?
There you go. I love it. Yeah.
That friend now has over 6 figures with me.
I love it.
So over time, it is really going to expand, and it's just about always reaching out to new people, right? You may have that network and that group of investors, but you always want to be adding to that.
Love it. Excellent, man. Let's talk a little bit about managing a project, right? So
Sure.
beginners and even seasoned veterans alike, managing a project can be some of the most challenging, can be one of the most challenging parts of the process when it comes to these projects. So speak to a little bit about your management style and how your team is structured to make sure these projects get done the way this is beautifully done.
Appreciate that. It has definitely evolved over the years. So, I started out managing all my projects myself. I got my general contractor's license about 4 years ago, really just to be in the city of Boston and being able to pull permits. And I would sub out all the trades, electrical, plumbing, HVAC, all my framing. But I was there every single day. It is very time consuming, but it's necessary when you're running a project or a renovation like this to be there every day, because things can always change. You may tell a worker, hey, I want it done this way. They may forget, they may not do it that way, and then you have to backtrack. So I always tell people that you've got to be on site every day or have someone on site every day. It's evolved to a point where now I have a project manager who has been God sent from me. His name is Jaquil, and he runs these projects. So Jaquil has since started working with all the contractors that I work with, and he continues to reach out to other contractors to build our network of contractors. And Jaquil, again, will be here every single day. He'll call me, hey, I have questions about this, I have questions about this. I'm able to make those answers at home, other places, because I don't need to be on site all the time. It does take a little bit to work up to this point and to get your project manager up to speed.
Right. And it's funny you say, which you should share that, Andrew, because a lot of the folks I deal with, investors, borrowers who work with me, it's always the same thing. Showing up is the number one way to make sure you can manage a project from start to finish and get it done timely and get it done right. Yep.
So with that being said, Rob, everyone always talks about, where should I be buying my properties? And a lot of people are just trying to buy properties wherever they can. If there's a property more than an hour, 45 minutes to an hour away from you, how can you be there every single day and not be burnt out by driving all the time? So I always talk about, creating that circle around you of 30 minutes, maybe 45 minutes for projects, so that you can be at these projects every day and not feel drained at the end of the day because you drove so far.
Yeah, no, I'm really happy you shared that advice, because if you go on YouTube, right, a lot of YouTubers I did 100 flips last year or 2,000 or some crazy numbers, but the only way they're doing that is through partnerships, right?
Of course.
Let's not get it twisted. A lot of folks out here saying a lot of things, but obviously they have someone who is there every day, who has skin in the game, who has equity in the project to ensure that happens. And
I love partnerships really important.
Too. Yeah, no, likewise, man. It's the only way to get it done, and have someone who's on board with your team that can assist and make sure you can kind of not replicate yourself, but have someone who's going to ensure that quality's right and really cares.
And the way that they care and then ensure the quality is the right way is they have skin in the game as well.
Right.
So they either have an equity stake or they have their own money in there. And that's crucial, right? You need to make sure that they have that in there, because otherwise they're not going to care. If they're just getting a paycheck, then that's it. It's not, it's not as beneficial for them to make sure the job runs as smooth as possible without hiccups.
Yep, absolutely, man. Excellent. So talk a little bit about this project, Andrew. What do you think was the most challenging thing about this particular project? If anything, was it super smooth?
Honestly, I could tell you about a lot of other projects that were much more challenging than this one.
Gotcha. So this was an easy one.
This was a fairly easy one. This was a project that the family tried to start renovations themselves and realized they got in over their heads. So this is a project that was already, let's say, 75% gutted to the studs. There were some areas that were not gutted that needed to be gutted, but they thought they could just, put lipstick on those areas, a bathroom here, a bathroom there. But I bought this property, which in this area of Dorchester was a legal 2-family. And through the zoning process, I was able to convert it to a 3-family. I was able to do that pretty quickly by what's called the occupancy committee. So the property already had 3 kitchens, already had 3 gas meters, but it was only legally a 2-family. When I got it converted to the 3-family, then I was able to start all my work and all my renovations. As far as hiccups along the way, honestly, there really wasn't a lot. When you get into a project where you're fully gutting it to the studs, where you can see behind all the walls, you already know how much money you're really going to spend. So I knew we had a really good sized budget with this. I knew I was able to buy it at a great price because it was only a legal 2-family, and I put the work and the value in to make it a 3-family. So, overall, this project went really well.
Glad to hear it, man, because it makes up for all the other ones that were a struggle.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I talked to everyone about this too. That's why it's so important to only be doing good deals. Yeah. Because one deal could wipe out 2, 3. One bad deal could wipe out 2 or 3 good deals.
100%.
So it's so important not to just do properties, to build your pipeline, to say, this is the before and after of it. Yeah. You got to be making money on these projects.
Very true. Very true. Good stuff. And then I think the last piece of the process is, how do you make sure you're going to sell these projects for a profit? What's your underwriting process look like, your CMA process, and the team to sell it?
Great question. So typically, if a project is brought to me by a broker, I would like to work with that broker on the back end. And that's why I have your team selling these condos for me.
We appreciate it.
So, I come to Rob and I say, hey, Rob, what do you think these properties are going to sell for? You give me a range. I'm also a real estate agent as well. So I do my own analysis as well. I have a good idea. I've done a lot of work in this area. So a lot of the comps that I'm looking at are ones that I've already done in the past. And I have a pretty, extensive deal analysis that I go through, and that I plug in all the numbers. And typically what I like to see on a property is a 15% profit to sale. So what that means is that if I'm going to sell a property for $1 million, I want to make at least $150,000 on it. So 15% profit to sale. And that's when I go through my analysis. That's what I look for when I'm looking at the feasibility of a project. And anything higher than that is great. When you start getting lower, you want to know for sure that this is your target area, that you know what you're doing here. And maybe I'll do something at 13%. But anything below that, unfortunately, you've got to pass on.
No, I totally agree with that logic. I target 20, and it usually ends up being 15 to 12, right? You target more, but we know, right? And it just depends on how tight you run your analysis. Your 15 might be a true 15. I'm always wishful, like, I'm going to get that 20. I didn't get it.
Yeah, but you know what? If you're shooting for 20 and you get 15, you're still doing it right.
You're good, right? Exactly.
On my end, I try to stay very, very conservative. Typically, my sellout numbers are higher than what I anticipate.
So you go on the other side of it, which is good. Yeah,
I always do.
I love it.
But I also spend a little bit more than I usually do. And that's honestly, you're going to find that with every project. Going over by 5% on construction of a project is not out of the norm. So you just got to kind of account for that as well.
I think something we have in common, and my wife's my partner on our projects, is the quality, right? We really believe in delivering a high quality project. And I think everyone who's walked through this building, Andrew, that's been really what they've spoken about the most. They love the quality of the finishes here. It really shows well. And you can't fake that, right? The buyers know. I call it the HGTV effect these days. But nowadays, buyers are way more educated on finishes than they've ever been.
Yes.
And so real developers are going to shine, and the fake ones are going to get exposed.
I can't take all the credit for that. I have an amazing designer, Kate Murphy. Feels like home design, that does an amazing job for me. And what she'll do, and kind of takes a lot off of my plate, she'll come into a project and she'll provide a PDF of all the finishes we're going to do in every one of these properties. Kitchen, backsplashes, the cabinets, the tile in the bathrooms. So now I have this document that I can always refer back to. And she goes even further where she purchases all my materials for me. So, you know, it's all about really, you know, when you get to this level where you're a developer, you're trying to take a lot of off of your plate. And she does an amazing job for me, and she does an amazing job on all these properties.
Yeah, no, I can attest to it, man. No, that's great. That's great. Good stuff. I guess the last question relative to the deal side is your team. So how is your team structured, Andrew? You guys just talked about your designer.
Sure.
You got a project manager in Jaquil. Is that kind of the main makeup? And then you got your brokers that you use on the sellout side.
Yeah, absolutely. That's my main team. You don't need a big team here, right? You don't need 10 different employees. Obviously, you have to have a great CPA, bookkeeper. You know, that's very important, especially when you're doing multiple projects. You never want to be, you know, finishing the end of the year and finding out how much you spent on a project, you know, 6 months ago. So having a great CPA, having a great attorney, right, that solely focuses on real estate. They're not doing criminal law and other stuff. They're just real estate. That's super important. Now, those are extensions of my team. I have my designer and I have my project manager that handle all that, you know, all this day-to-day stuff.
Excellent. So Andrew, one of the big things that's important, and I think my audience, they always want to know about this, how do you achieve work-life family balance, man? Because it's not easy with what we do. And the lines get blurred sometimes. So speak a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I have a family of 5. I have 2 stepchildren, and I have, you know, a baby, 4-year-old with my wife. So family time is super important to me. And I think, you know, just talking about having that great team around you is important. So having a project manager that can be at these projects, because someone needs to be at these projects every day. Having a designer that can take a lot of the design work off of my plate, a lot of the purchasing off of my plate. So as I kind of refine my business, it really is, okay, what am I spending the most time on? And can that be outsourced to different people? So I definitely, you know, obviously take priority, my kids and family priority over these projects, but it's making sure that these projects are taken care of, that they have the time and attention they need, and that's through my team.
Excellent. Is your wife in the business, involved in the business at all?
She is not in the business.
Okay.
She does love to give me critiques. She loves to, you know, talk about the staging and the design work, but she actually loves my designer, so it works out really well.
That's good, man. It makes a big difference.
Yes, because I know your wife is involved.
She is, yeah. So her background, she has a background in design, so she handles that part of it, and then she helps out with some of the project management. But, you know, it's always about finding the right team and the right mix to make sure you achieve your goals, but more importantly, you have the time to be there for your family, because our teams are there to support that as well.
Absolutely. And, you know, my wife is my biggest supporter. She's always asking me about things. She's always saying, hey, what's going on here? What's going on there? I think that's very important. And then making sure that you're taking and you're scheduling that time with your wife, with your kids, to make sure that you're not, you know, because we could be at these projects all day long.
We could work 24/7.
I could be working 24/7.
Always something to do.
And I silence my phone at a certain time, and I don't look at my phone in the morning till a certain time. You know, having those kind of bookends of my day is very important. You know, I wake up and I have my routine. I make sure I go to bed at a certain time. You know, my day might be a little crazy, you know, going to projects here and there, but I know that if I have my bookends ready to go, then it's going to be a good day.
Excellent. So talk a little bit about first-time flippers, right? You know, a lot of times folks getting into the business, and even you or me coming in, we don't have all the answers. We don't know everything. So what advice would you give to someone just getting in, or better yet, what advice would you give to your younger self?
Yes.
You're starting all over.
I mean, I think in the beginning, I did a couple of great things, you know, that I didn't even know, but it was networking. It was going to these real estate networking events, going to, you know, pop-ups and getting yourself out there. I think the other thing is finding that mentor. Right. Finding someone that you can bounce properties off of, that you can ask them certain questions about things, taking them out to lunch, taking them out to dinner, paying for that dinner. It goes such a long way. So I would say networking is a big part of it, and just, you know, always learning. Right. So, you know, I'm a big believer in I'm always a student. Right? I'm always learning something new. Been in this game for 14, 15 years, and there's still so much I need to learn. So having that mentality and not just, oh, I know everything already, I think opens up more opportunities for you.
Gotcha. What would you say the number one challenge would be for someone just getting in? I know you have students you're mentoring. Maybe it's something you hear from them Is there like any themes or anything that you feel is more of a challenge, or is it really just making sure you have the knowledge as the foundation?
Well, I think having the knowledge is the first step, right?
Okay.
Because you get what you deserve, right? If you're working hard and you're gaining that knowledge and that expertise, then you deserve to find a good deal, do a deal. I think the next step, what I hear from a lot of people, is finding the right deal. Right, and that is it's an art. It's tricky to not be in the business for so long and have those connections, and to jump right in and say, I'm going to go find that first deal. So it's really in the beginning, hustling really hard to find that first deal, and I think that's one of the biggest challenges that I hear from my students. Another is the financing part of things.
Right.
One thing that I constantly tell them is that if you find a good deal, the money will come, right? And I think you're a believer in that too. If you find a great deal, right, you might not even need money. You may be able to wholesale the property, or you might be able to partner with someone else on it. And if it's a good enough deal, you're going to find the money for it.
Very true. Very true. I say that something very similar. If you find the right deal, the money will find you.
Yes,
that's it.
Absolutely.
Man. And it's been true. I've proven it true in my own life, and so have my students as well. And I'm sure you have. So
absolutely. I mean, that's why we preach what we preach, right? Because it's trial and error. It's learning from all the experiences that we've been through. Right. You know, we're not just saying things because you read them in a book, even though you can't read some of the stuff in the book. But you learn it by being there, and I think that's where it really sticks.
Yeah, no, definitely. Sounds good, man. So as we're wrapping up, Andrew, is there any other thoughts or anything else you want to share with folks? You know, obviously you can share how people can connect with you, how they can join your mentorship program.
Of course.
But any advice you want to leave for the audience and for the listeners out there who may be thinking about getting into real estate or might be in real estate, and something that kind of continues to motivate you and inspire you on a daily basis?
Yes, I would say number one is just to be passionate about what you do. And I'm just passionate about real estate. You know, I'm passionate about every part of it. I love being able to see the transformations, the before and afters. I love the art of finding the deal. So I think one is just being passionate about, you know, what you're going after, especially in real estate. I don't know. I think that's what I would say.
No, that's great, man. That's great. Anything else relative to how folks can connect with you if they want to join your mentorship program?
Absolutely.
Where's the best place for them to reach out? Is it Instagram? Is it Facebook?
So my name is Andrew Litchfield. My company's Penny Investments. It starts with one. That's what I tell all my students, because it really starts with that first deal. And you can connect with me on Instagram, Penny Investments. You can also go to my website, startwithpenny.com. Be happy to answer anything, any of the questions you have, email, phone number. So, you know, reach out to me anytime. And we have mentorship programs coming up actually in a couple of weeks.
Excellent.
So I'm looking for some new students, and I'd be happy to talk to you about it.
Excellent. Excellent. Sounds good, man. Well, I definitely want to recognize you for all the great work you're doing in the city of Boston and beyond. Again, it's high quality. It takes one to know one, and I really appreciate all you've done, man. And your story is a true inspiration. You know, starting with nothing, building your real estate empire, and I can't wait to see what you do in the future.
Thanks so much, man. I appreciate the time.
Good stuff.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew.